Welcome back to another episode. In this episode, we're just going to break down. This has been a sales heavy week for us. We've been doing, as we ramp up to move the company 3,000 miles away, we've had quite a few demos this week. And so I think this is a good time to talk about how we view sales. And based on our background coming from a couple of different software startups to where we are now, one of the things that we've been really aligning on this week, which has been refreshing, is a core ethos I think that, Mike, you've had with this business so far is treating other people how you want to be treated. And you and I, sales is like the thing. It doesn't matter how good your idea is, how fancy, how polished, how many shiny objects it has. If you can't figure out a way to market it and sell it, it really is irrelevant. And more companies than not, they go out of business not because their product's not good, but because they haven't figured out what channel works the best. And so I'm glad that we are aligned on the strategy we kind of came to this week with dealing with a couple of these demos, which is like, tell them some high level stuff. And it did help getting that email from Alex Hormozy, I would say this week, the Mosey Minute, which was like, don't dump this whole demo trial and put all the stuff out there and just put the dump truck of features on people. It's like, show them one or two things, really listen. And I think it's the same with a relationship, right? It's like, 80% is listening, 20% is speaking. And so it was nice this week to really just go in, get to know our clients, get to know what they're doing, what problems they have, what other tools that they've used that are similar to ours. Why didn't those work? What happened? What are their integrations? And then, literally the demo, they did it on their own. We sent them the call, they got to experience it. And I loved that you and I aligned on that and that we were able to let them kind of drive it on their own. And if they want to continue talking, they can continue talking. I think I know I'm going on and on, but I think this aligns really well with something that Myron Golden taught me last year, around this time, May last year, at his event, which is like, people don't want to be sold to. And number one, like, what is selling? Like, I think we all have that like used car dealership mentality. Like, something's gonna get forced on me that I don't want. But Myron, he's like, and Alex, they're like, selling is really, finding someone that has a problem that really could benefit from a thing. And you're just basically matchmaking, right? You're showing them the benefits of that solution, how it can help them. And if it can't, then you're not recommending it. So it felt really nice to create that low pressure environment. And that's what I was going to say from Myron's event. He's like, when we sell, people run away. When we step back and we're like, here's what we can do, love it or leave it, like no pressure, that's when people feel more inspired to buy because they feel like it's a safe environment. You're not desperate, whatever. So it was really fun having, more demos than normal this week and getting to go through that practice. What are your thoughts on the approach that we landed on? Obviously, we will continue to refine it, but I'm really happy that we aligned on how to tackle that. And I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed the demos we did this week with prospects because I left the call and it was actually really refreshing. I think you felt the same way, Perry, where it wasn't like this dread of going into a call because when you try to sell and you try to be so-called salesy, there's a lot of pressure you put a lot of pressure on yourself to perform a specific way and to have this whole script. And we kind of went in being like, we really just want to get to know these people as human beings and first develop that rapport, right? This is a 30-minute discovery call. It's the first call you have with somebody. You're doing it on video on Zoom. Some people have their cameras on, some people don't have their cameras on, which, but either way, we just went in trying to get to know them first as human beings, understand. I loved how you brought up the question, which is like, why now? Why now for help with applicant screening and you bringing on an AI assistant for calls? And that, when you just kind of ask questions that are open-ended, generally all of the questions that you wanted to get through to so-called qualify a prospect, in this case, they all got answered like within the first 5 minutes of the call, which was great. And then both of those calls, which was also pleasant, I think they both ended. We booked the 30 minutes with both of the prospects. I think the calls ended well over 10 minutes early. I think we were only on for 20 minutes. And, thinking back to the first call, again, it was more of like understanding why they were interested. And the why was because they're growing their business, Both clients actually, they're growing their business and they've heard really good things about our products from other users on how it's allowing them to, screen people very efficiently without taking the totally the human element out of it, right? And so again, it was just kind of listening. And I also really like that we didn't even screen share and dive into the platform and all the bells and whistles, which are our features. Again, that's putting a lot of pressure on us. And also too, I don't think that people really care about all of the how it works behind the scenes until they understand the magic of, in this case for our product, it's all about, do you like the experience of having this AI interviewer on the phone? What do you think? What's the quality like? Because one of our clients, for example, right, they were very hesitant on automation, and but they're also realizing like, hey, we can't hire 15 people to screen applicants and 24/7. That's not going to be efficient from a cost perspective. And I think the takeaway, it was enjoyable because we went in it to have them do more of the talking versus us doing the talking and having this pressured script of all this checklist of things to get through. I think a lot of sales people, they think they overthink that, when really you can just ask the right questions and let the person on the phone do most of the talking.
Yeah, there's been so many books on, I think on both sides where it's like the personal selling and like all these strategic strategy, blah, blah, blah. And like even just going through the process of reading some of those books and consuming that material, it sets you up in the headspace that like, I need to do everything. Can you imagine going on a first date with someone and it's like, I need to do everything. Like I need to do all the talking. I need to show them all the stuff. I need to pick the right food. It's like, that's crazy. That is so crazy. It's like, it takes so much pressure off knowing that, number one, you're likely to end the call early for everyone. And you have you don't have the deal before you get on the call. Right. So like you're not losing anything if you mess it up or you misspeak. And the benefit of having them talk yesterday was so apparent because there was some apprehension with the AI stuff and whatever. And like, there was a point at which, the one franchise owner we were speaking with, I don't know if I would have related to him as well had he not said, hey, I'm worried about AI and like people are really important at, ethics and like the ethics of hiring and like ghosting people. Like that is a problem for me. I really want our applicants to be treated really well. And you and I, just given the companies we've started in the past, like that's something we very much align with. And I think like, it was just a really powerful thing, right? Because at the end of the day, AI automation, like these tools are coming. And so who do you want to align yourself with? Like in a previous video, we were talking about how the people come through in the product that they create. And people are the product of the decisions, the behaviors, the habits that they have in their life, right? And so it's like, I want to be aligned when we're looking for vendors. I want to be aligned with people they ethically treat their employees like with respect, and they, they're thinking about what their experience is like from end to end, from onboarding to offboarding, like all of the pieces in between. They're thinking about those components. And like, it was really cool to hear that customer basically say something very similar to what you would have, and I would have said on how we want our applicants to get treated, whether they get a job at the company or they don't. And he saw it as a much bigger thing than just some transaction. And that, for me, like that was, it's really important to hear those things because like you want to be aligned with your clients. Like there's no, when you've gone so long in a startup, like you and I have had a ton of success. We've had to grind it out. We've gone through all of it. And I think the best part is like being able to work with the people that are fun and the people that they have the same values. And it's more than just the transaction, right? And it's like, that is, all of this stuff is meaningless if it doesn't bring us together in some meaningful, impactful way to tangibly improve other people's lives. And so I think, AI and all this stuff is coming. I want to work with companies that are responsibly wielding that power and that responsibility versus just trying to make a quick buck. So it was really cool to get to hear these different pieces that make the people tick when we're working with them. There was something else that you said that I thought was so interesting when we were going through the demo, but it takes so much pressure off of you not having to go through and knowing you're just there to listen. And you might have to say like, we're not aligned. Like, this isn't a great product for you guys, or it is, but yesterday we were lucky, and like everyone we spoke to was like, they really could use the time savings. They really could use the visibility on their data. And so it was a really good fit that way.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like the one reason why it's nice to not have a canned script and all these things that you plan on saying is I think it's good to have the questions that you want to ask to them upfront more than what you are going to say as the salesperson or representative of the company. We both went into that called, I think, less as salespeople. Even though we did send an invoice out, to one of the clients to basically, as part of the follow up, because they were interested right away once they did go through the AI call experience. But the thing is, no one, I don't think, really cares about all the other stuff too. Like when you're asking questions and it allows you to answer and really tailor that call to those questions, and you can have the answers based on dynamic information you're getting during that call of what people actually care about instead of what you think they're going to care about. You don't really know what people are going to care about. Both those calls were very different. One client didn't mention anything about apprehension about AI. Actually, in fact, they were talking about how Gen Z was using Chat GPT, and one of their things that they understood the power of AI because they were saying the resumes that are coming in are so super polished that the people aren't actually matching them. So he was really interested in getting this solution to basically get the person on the phone and see if they have a pulse and they're a real person, right? And then the other call was a little bit of apprehension on the AI side, but also this recognition that it's coming, and that you want to be able to interview people, the 54% of people that are interviewing off hours, because otherwise those are people that are actually working if they're doing it off hours, most likely, right? And if you're only interviewing people during 9 to 5, you might be getting more of an unemployed base, right? And so you want to make sure you've got a big net to cast. But again, it was just those calls were enjoyable because we know the product inside and out, and we also went in with the mindset of, we don't have them right now, so there's really nothing to lose. There was just no pressure on either side. And I think another important thing to understand about clients, and the reason why it's important to ask questions, is you need to understand their business and where your product fits into their workflow. Because in this case, if we're getting applicants screened so quickly and they're getting back to our clients and then they just are ending up on another queue, our product will not be successful long term. So we need to understand a little bit more about the process. And that's why asking questions is very valuable, to make sure that they can handle the fire hose of people that are going to pass and get to the next stage of the hiring process. In this case, this client, right? Both these clients we spoke to yesterday were in the hiring space. So they're going to use InstaHere for applicant screening. And, you have to be willing to walk away if the applicants for us, right? We always talked about, it's not a good fit if they're just going to pile up the next stage and they're not going to be treated and like human beings, and they're not going to be responded to, because then you're getting people excited and you're keeping the funnel engaged only for it to then crater off. So you have to ask questions. You can't just care about me and like you said, making that quick dollar. You have to make sure it's a good fit for your customer, because if it's not a good fit, and even if you get the sale, it's going to end up costing you that relationship in the long run. And so I like how Alex Hormozy says about the zombies. The zombies, that's another good question of why you can ask, or another good point of asking questions. The zombies are going to come out either way, whether, at the end of the call. So you might as well ask the hard questions up front.
I really don't think when going on a call, there's a couple things. A mentor of mine, and you know this, but I'm just going to share it with people watching. And like, she always taught me, find out why they're on the call. Like, why they're on the call professionally, for the tool, for whatever? Why are they in the call personally? Like if this thing works out and it's ultimately successful, what's in it for them? Do they get a promotion? Do they get to breathe because it's going to help them do their job more efficiently? Like what's in it for them?
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me that. And then Myron taught me like questions are the answer. If you want to plant a seed in someone's head of an idea, you're not going to do it by making statements, telling them how good it is, we're the best coffee in New York, like best software, whatever, best AI voice provider, right? Like you're going to ask them questions, and those questions are actually the thing that make people move the neuron files around in their head to start posing, like to make a decision in one way or the other. I don't think statements are as powerful. So I those two things I think have helped me really think through like what's going on in their head. And I was going to say this earlier. There's not that many questions you really need to ask on a call. It's like really like, why this product? What other ones have you used? Tell me about that ecosphere. Then tell me about like why now? Like what's making you guys need this now? Like why did you realize you need it now? And what's going on with that? And like if you have those two things, you have like 80% of the conversation started. I do think the integration, like you were talking about bottlenecking, like where is it going to be the constraint once we stand this up? Because like we don't want to be a part of that. Like we don't want to put applicants into a nowhere pool. So I think there's really two or three big questions you want to answer on the call. And then there's all these nice to have neat, other ones that are anecdotal, but you can kind of hammer those out in other correspondence. But it's like, once you have the critical ones down and if you're aligned and if the pricing and the value and that, like these people, we were so lucky. They understood the value of momentum. And I think like a lot of people, they're just not there yet. They don't understand that like success loves speed. Money likes speed. Like if you don't have that momentum, you lose the throughput, right? So it's like,
Yes.
having to convince someone of that and explain that to people, I'm not interested in that. Like they need to, watch Tony Robbins or whoever, like go through some self-help stuff to realize how powerful momentum is in helping you get from where you are to wherever you want to be. But like these people all understood that yesterday. And so that was like a huge win that you and I had nothing to do with. We were just aligned.
Yeah. And allowing them to talk, to answer that question of why they're on the call, like you were mentioning that your mentor talked about, they reiterate the problem and they actually state it out loud. And there's no guessing. Like you're not telling them about your solution. They're talking about their problem. And then they're basically reinforcing why they need your product. Because as we know, Alex Hormozy, another great line, people don't just jump on calls with salespeople for fun. Maybe some people in large companies that have to fill a calendar. In this case, we knew going into that was not going to be the case. No one was getting points on their annual review for vendor scoping out, right? And so we knew that these calls were going to be really real and get right to the point. And we're still figuring it out, right? We're still definitely figuring it out. But one thing that made me really proud was that we left those calls feeling more fuel, and we went into it with like no anxiety. I think if you're going into a call being anxious, you need to check yourself. You need to take a deep breath and understand where is that coming from.
Well, I do have thoughts on that. And then I think we should close because speaking of, we have a follow-up call in a couple minutes with a client. But the biggest thing on that, anytime you're feeling anxiety, especially related to a call, my money 9 times out of 10 is you're thinking more about yourself than the other person. If that's for me, I've noticed that in self-help. I've noticed that like all these meditation, whatever, Bible, like any studies that I've done, it's always like when you're thinking about yourself more than the other person, and it could be desperation. It could be, what if I mess up? It could be this, it could be that. And it's like all those things, no one can, if your hair is not perfect, you have a stain, whatever, you mess up, you misspeak, like we all do those things and whatever. And it's like, no, everyone's thinking about their own stuff. And if they really want to fix a problem, they'll be interested in finding the best tool for the job. And all you have to do is understand, are you the best tool for the job? And then if you are, explain how and why. And that's the big thing. People will tell you things. I was just listening before this, you and I spoke, Tony Robbins and Jordan Peterson, and they were talking about the psychology of change and how people change. And, Tony's event every year. And he was talking about, it's not, I want to make $1 million. whatever. It's like, it's the why behind doing that. I want to make $1 billion so I can have a legacy. I want to make $1 million so I can retire my mom, whatever it is. That's the thing. That's like where the actual magic is. So they might say the problem is we're doubling our business. Why is that important? And so it's like there's another exercise called the 7 whys. And you say, why is that important? Why is that important? And then every time you get a response, you drill down until you get to like the raw emotion of why a thing is. And I think those little exercises are so powerful in really understanding who you're working with, why they're sitting there, and what they want, out of this conversation and out of their next chapter.